Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the live lecture of Real Analysis 1. In the last lecture, we have seen an important theorem proving the integrability over the region A to B is equal to integration over A to C plus C to B. Okay. The statement in detail tells us that whenever the function f is integrable on closed interval AB, then it is also integrable on AC and CB, where C is the point moved out in the interval A to B. Second point is in the reverse way, if f is bounded and integrable on AC and CB, then it is also integrable on closed interval AB. That is, it is implied and implied by, right? No. Integrable on AB implies and implied by, it is integrable on AC and CB. This is what the statement means. And in both the cases, we have proved that integration from A to B f dx is equals to integration from A to C f dx plus integration C to B f dx. The detailed proof we have discussed already in the last lecture. Now in today's lecture we are going to start a new session of finding the integrability of product of integrable functions, quotient of integrable functions and modulus of integrable functions. Right? But before going to the main proof, we are going to prove one lemma which will be helpful for us proving the main theorems. Let me just give the heading as integrability of product, quotient and modulus. Do you have the idea about the integrability of these operations of the integrable functions? Are they integrable? Getting my question? Suppose we have two functions f1 and f2 say, right? Whether the product f1 dot f2 is integrable or not. That is a question. Same question is for quotient and same question is for modulus. That is, if f1 and f2 are integrable function, what about f1 by f2, a quotient? Similarly, what about the modulus values of those functions, mod f1 and mod f2, whether all those are integrable or not? What do you say? What is your idea? I think you have used it earlier, correct? Yes, students. Product of integrable functions, whether it is integrable or not.
Integrable. Product
Integrable,
is
ma'am.
always
Integrable.
integrable.
Very good. One rule you have studied, no? For evaluating the product of integrable functions. Integration f dot g. You have seen, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Now we are going to prove these theorems as main theorem. Product of two integrable function is integrable. Quotient of two integrable function is integrable. Modulus of integrable function is also integrable. But before going to the main theorems, we need one more statement in order to prove the theorems, which is called as the lemma. Okay. Lemma is the statement used for proving the main theorem. Therefore, first we will prove the lemma and then we will go for main theorems. The lemma says that prove that the oscillations of a bounded function. What is the meaning of oscillation? Oscillatory sum we have discussed, no, somewhere. Oscillations of the bounded function here on an interval. On an interval, say closed interval AB is the supremum of the set. Which set? See, let us write the set is mod of fx1 minus fx2 provided x1 x2 are the elements of this interval AB. First, you should try to understand the meaning of the lemma. Then we will go for proving this. What is the meaning of oscillations? What is oscillations? Oscillations are nothing but the fluctuations of the given function in the given interval. Fluctuation means what is the difference between the supremum value and the infimum value of the function. Is that okay? Oscillations,
Yes, ma'am.
the difference between suprema and infima, right? Suppose, let me draw a sketch for the sake of understanding. Suppose this is our function, say f, okay, defined in the interval a to b, say, right? Then what is the suprema value of the function? Looking at the curve, may I say this is the suprema point? Let me denote it by capital M, okay? And where I am observing the infima, here it is infima, no? Let me mark this point as small m. Therefore, what is the oscillation in this sketch? Oscillations in this sketch is nothing but this much region, right now? In this region only the function fluctuates. The function oscillates. That's why this region is called as oscillation. Therefore, what will be the oscillation in the interval? This is capital M minus small m. That is suprema minus infima value of the given function in the given interval. And then what is the aim to show then? Oscillations of the bounded function on an interval AB is the supremum of the set. Okay. What is the aim to show then? Supremum of this set. Which set? Mod of fx1 minus fx2 on the condition x1, x2 are the elements of the interval AB, and the supremum is nothing but capital M minus small m. This is the aim to show. Is that okay? Supremum of this set is m minus m. This is what we wanted to show. But in order to show this statement, we were going to show suprema of this set. Now, because suprema is actually least among all the upper bounds. Therefore, if I wanted to show this number m minus m is the suprema of the set, then the job we will do is, first of all, we will try to show this m minus m is an upper bound. Okay? M minus m is an upper bound. After showing it is the upper bound, we will go for showing that this is least among all the upper bounds. Okay. How can I show this is the least among all the upper bounds? Suppose once we have proved m minus m is the upper bound. In order to show this is least, what we will do? We will subtract a small positive number epsilon from this number, and then this number is not upper bound. This number will not be an upper bound. If this number is not an upper bound, may I say m minus m will be least among all the upper bounds? Correct now? This is least among all the upper bounds. Is that okay, everyone? Try to understand what we wanted to show. Okay. Therefore, here is the way we were going to show. First aim is m minus m is an upper bound. And in the second step, we were going to show m minus epsilon is not upper bound. However small epsilon you take, if you subtract it from this m minus m, it will not be the upper bound. Okay, you can check from the example itself. Suppose we have an open interval 1 to 2. We know the least upper bound, that is suprema is 2. Correct? But if you subtract any small positive number from this 2, will it be the least upper bound? Yes, whether 2 minus epsilon will be the upper bound for this set.
No.
Oh, 2 minus epsilon is not upper bound. Correct now? However, small epsilon you may select. 2 minus epsilon will not be an upper bound. The same strategy we were going to use in order to do this. Okay, let us come to this set. What kind of nature of element in the set is defined? This is nothing but difference between the two function values. Correct now? For any two element x1, x2 in the closed interval. Okay. Why modulus is taken? Because sometimes f of x1 may, suppose somewhere here is my x1. Okay. And let it be x2 here. Then fx2 is bigger than fx1, right now? In that case, it will be negative. Therefore, just to make the positive or non-negative values, we are going to use the modulus. Therefore, actually, fx1 minus fx2 are the fluctuations, the difference between the two function values, and the aim is to show that this is the least upper bound. M minus m will be the least upper bound of the fluctuations or oscillations of the given functions. Okay, let me start the proof then. Up to this? Any difficulty? Idea of the proof?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now let me write the infima and suprema values of the function in order to show m minus m is a upper bound of the given set. For this, I am going to write, let small m, capital M and small m be the bounds. Bounds means what I am assuming here? Suprema and infima respectively. Okay, of the function here. On which interval? Closed interval.
Interval AB.
AB. Good. Okay. Now if it is so, now we were trying to construct an element of this fx1 minus fx2 type. Okay. As let me select any two arbitrary elements of the set x1, x2 of the interval say AB. As this is the suprema, this is the infima. Can I write m less than or equals to fx1? F of x1 is greater or equal by m, no? Because whenever we were assuming these are the bounds, what is the meaning? F of x lies between small m to capital M. Correct, no? Therefore, for this particular value of x1, m is less than or equals to fx1. Let me write some other value, say fx2, and I am going to write this is less than or equals to capital M. Okay? Okay. Now what the job we will do?
Okay.
We will just make the addition of the inequalities and we'll try to construct a term of the type fx1 minus fx2. So for adding we get, what we will get adding? M plus fx2 is less than or equals to fx1 plus capital M. Is that okay? Now let us try to construct a term m minus m, capital M minus small m. For this, let me shift this small m on the right, fx1 on the left. Therefore, may I say this is fx2 minus fx1 is less than or equals to capital M minus small m. Okay. Now we don't know what is the nature between fx1 and fx2. So what I can write is about in the modulus I will write mod fx1 minus fx2. Is it okay? Okay. Now let me call this as statement number 1, and this is true for all x1, x2 in the closed interval AB. Now by varying the different values of x1 and x2 over this given interval, may I say this will construct one set and every element of the set is less than or equals to capital M minus small m. Therefore, if I write this as a set, okay, therefore may I write here this implies the set. Why I am writing set? Varying the different values of x1, x2 over the given interval, it will give you one value every time. Let me put all the values in a set. Therefore, I will write mod fx1 minus fx2 provided x1, x2 is in the closed interval AB. Okay. The set has upper bound. What will be the upper bound of this set?
M minus M.
Yes, this capital M minus
small
m is, yes. The set has upper bound as capital M minus small m. First step we have completed. M minus m we have shown this to be an upper bound. Now we were going to show that capital M minus small m minus epsilon is not an upper bound. Okay. To show this, what we were going to do, we were going to introduce a number epsilon for the particular selection of the elements in the given interval. Let me write, let epsilon greater than 0 be given number. Okay. Now for this epsilon, we are interested in selecting a, we were interested in selecting particular value, say, let me just show you with the help of sketch, so that idea will be very clear to you. Okay. Suppose this is the function we have, right? Here is your capital M and somewhere here is your small m sec. Okay. Now what we were going to do, here it is capital M, let me mark, and here it is say small m, let me mark. Now as of we know this function is bounded and the oscillation, set of oscillations or set of fluctuations has an upper bound capital M minus small m. Now can I find a number in the closed interval AB? Okay, see. Somewhere here we have this m and here. Can I find a number x dash somewhere closer to this point? Somewhere closer to this point. Say this point I'm going to call say z. Somewhere point closer to z, let it be x dash such that the difference between fx dash, this is fx dash, no, somewhere here it is, fx dash and m is less than epsilon by 2. Can we do this? This is epsilon by 2, less than epsilon by 2. Okay? For a given epsilon, for any given epsilon greater than 0, what I'm going to write, since capital M is the supremum of F, therefore there exists a number x dash in the closed interval AB such that, what such that I am saying? Difference between m and fx dash is less than epsilon by 2. Why epsilon by 2? Just the sake of adjustment. Okay? M, difference between m and epsilon fx dash is less than epsilon by 2. Can you find such a number x dash? Yes, one can find out, no. A number closer to z you can find such that this difference m and fx dash is less than by epsilon by 2. Okay. Can I write the same as shifting fx dash on the right? This is m minus epsilon by 2 strictly less than by fx dash, or I can write fx dash is greater by m minus epsilon by 2, and let me call it as statement number 2. Is that okay? Similar, on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
similar line, can we find other number, say x double dash, where the difference between fx double dash and m is again less than epsilon by 2. Okay? Similarly,
Yes, ma'am.
there exists x double dash in the closed interval AB such that, what such that? What can I write here? Fx double dash minus m, no? Or m minus fx double dash, which will be the correct one? Which value is bigger here? Fx double dash and m? Fx double dash and small m. Which value is bigger?
Fx double dash.
X
Yes,
double dash.
fx double dash is bigger. So what should I write? Fx double dash minus small m is less than epsilon by 2. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what I am going to do? I am going to convert this as per our convenience. Okay. First, I will write fx double dash less than m plus epsilon by 2. Okay. Now, let me multiply by negative so that it gives us minus fx double dash greater by minus m minus epsilon by 2. And let me call it as statement number 3. Why we have multiplied by negative? Because I want to add these two equations, fx double dash and fx dash and fx double dash, because these are the two elements in the given interval we have found, particularly which satisfies these inequalities number 2 and 3. Therefore, now I am going to add these two, number 2 and number 3. Okay, adding. What we will get by adding the two numbers, two inequalities?
Fx dash minus fx double dash.
Very good. On the right side?
Minus epsilon by 2 minus.
Yes, greater, no? Quickly
Yes, ma'am.
greater, na?
Greater, ma'am.
Capital M minus small m. This minus epsilon by 2 and this minus epsilon by 2 becomes minus epsilon. And this is the adjustment we have made, right now? Okay. Therefore, we have obtained this kind of statement. Therefore, may I write mod of this value is also greater by m minus epsilon. So look at this. For any two x dash and x double dash in the given interval, what we have shown? for this element, whether it is the element of your set or not, this is the element of your set, no? For the two particular values, x dash and x double dash of this interval. Okay, but modulus of the difference between the function values is strictly greater by m minus epsilon. Therefore, whether it implies that m minus m will be still an upper bound, m minus epsilon, whether it is an upper bound of the set. लक्षात येते का बघा. इक्वेशन नंबर 1 वरून आपण काय सांगितलं होतं, कॅपिटल एम मायनस स्मॉल एम हा या सेटचा अप्पर बाउंड आहे, बरोबर असं सांगितलं होतं. म्हणजे प्रत्येक एलिमेंट, या सेट मधला प्रत्येक एलिमेंट कोणापेक्षा लेस असेल, कॅपिटल एम मायनस स्मॉल एम पेक्षा लेस असेल. बट आपण त्याच इंटरवल मधले दोन एलिमेंट असे शोधले, एक्स डॅश आणि एक्स डबल डॅश असे एलिमेंट आपण शोधले जिथे modulus value of the modulus of difference of the function values is not less than m minus epsilon. This is greater. Therefore, may I say m minus epsilon is not an upper bound of the set? Correct,
Yes,
na?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This implies capital M minus epsilon is not an upper bound of the set. Which set? The above set we have written, no? Of the set mod of fx1 minus fx2, provided x1 x2 belongs to closed interval AB. Correct, na? M minus m is upper bound, but m minus epsilon is not an upper bound. Therefore, may I say here, this implies no number less than capital M minus small m can be upper bound of the set, right now? Therefore, may I say capital M minus small m is least upper bound of given set. Is it okay? Therefore, here I can claim capital M minus small m is the supremum of the set difference between the function values, modulus of difference between the function values. Yes, any difficulty with the proof? If you have, you can ask me. Very simple proof actually. Initially we have shown capital M minus small m is upper bound. Then by selecting two particular values of the given interval x dash and x double dash, we have shown that capital M minus small m minus epsilon is not an upper. Okay? Shall I go for the next proof then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let us go for the next theorem. The next theorem shows the integrability of product of two integrable functions. Wait a minute. The theorem statement says that if f1 and f2 are two bounded and integrable functions, is there any condition essential to define the product of two functions? Two bounded and integrable functions on closed interval AB, then prove that. What to prove? Their product f1 dot f2 is also bounded and integrable. What about boundedness? You can say whether it is always bounded, product of bounded functions. Because it is asked us to show it is bounded and integrable. Therefore, two steps we have to follow. Right? What we will do in the first step?
Put out F1, F2 is bounded on closed interval AB.
Good. What do you say about boundedness? असेल का बाउंडेड? प्रूव्ह करायचंय ना मॅडम आपल्याला म्हणून. Correct na? Let us try to check whether it is bounded or not. Before that, we will write the functions given itself are bounded. Therefore, here I will write since f1, f2 are bounded. Okay, there exist two constants, say k1 greater than 0 and k2 greater than 0, such that what such that mod of f1 of x is less than or equals to k or k1 I can write. Can I select a common bound also? Okay, let it be. For all x in the closed interval AB. Okay. Now let me consider the product. How can I operate a product? F1, F2 operated on x. Yes. How this product is operated?
F of x1 dot mod of f of x1 dot mod of f of x2.
I think you wanted to say f1 of x into f2 of x. Right, no? F1 operated on x, F2 operated on x, and the product was taken finally. Correct, no? Now this modulus of product is product of their respective modulus. Right now? Okay. Now let me put both the bounds of both the functions. This is less than or equals to k1. This is also less than or equals to k2. Okay. This both are less than or equals to k1 and k2. Is that okay? Therefore, what can I say? F1 dot F2 is bounded on closed interval AB. Okay. Here one can replace this by by selecting maximum. Here whatever k1, k2 we have written now, you can select maximum between k1 and k2. You can write it as k so that you can replace here as k and k. So that the bound here will be k square. If you feel convenient, write. Otherwise, let it be. Okay. Next step, we will go for proving the integrability. Prove the integrability means check the condition of integrability for the product of two functions. Right now, f1, f2 is integrable on closed interval AB. As of we have discussed in the previous two theorems of sum of two integrable functions and difference of two integrable functions, here also it is very essential to get the relation between the bounds of those functions so that you can establish the relation between their sums, upper sums and lower sums. Now to establish the relation, again we will consider one partition. Let P. What is the standard partition we were writing? A equals to x0, x1, x2, so on, up to xn equals to b. Be a partition of closed interval AB. Right now, be any partition. Now let us write down the bounds. I hope you have not forgotten the bounds. Capital Mi dash and small mi dash b. Bounds of, yes, f1 in ith subinterval. What is next? Capital Mi double dash and small mi double dash be the bounds of f2. Right? And without dashes is the bound for be the bounds of f1 dot f2 in the ith subinterval. Okay. Now what we will do? We will try to find out the relation. To find out the relation between the bounds of the function, we were going to use the previous lemma. Okay. Therefore here we will start with any two arbitrary elements we have for all x1, x2 in the ith subinterval xi minus 1 to xi. Okay, what I am going to find out? I am going to find out F1, F2 operated on x2 minus F1, F2 operated on x1. One may have a question why image is found like this, because in the previous lemma we have seen that the modulus of difference between the two function values, this set has a suprema capital M minus small m. That is, there is a direct relation between the bounds and this term. Correct? No? Bounds of the function and this terminology fx1 minus fx2. Therefore, for the function f1, f2 also we are starting with the same terminology. Is that okay? Let me just operate this function on the respective elements as f1 x2 into f2 x2 minus f1 x1 into f2 x1. Okay, for the sake of proving the required result, we were going to add and subtract a particular term. Therefore, I'll just mention here adding and subtracting the term. Here you have to keep this term in your mind for the sake of adjustment. F1 x1 and F2 x2 is the term we were going to add and subtract. Okay, shall I continue here only? Let me add it first, f1 x1 into f2 x2, and let me subtract the same term. This addition and subtraction is for the sake of proving the result, for the sake of separating the functions f1, f2. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is, let me collect the common terms from this first and last. What are the common terms you have? Is it f2, x2? And the terms in the bracket is f1 x2 minus f1 x1. Here you can observe very easily f1 is separated from f2, correct? From the middle two terms also, which term can be taken common? I think here it is f1 x1, yeah. Sorry. F1 x1 can be taken common, right? F1 x1 is taken common, and the terms left with us is f2 x2 minus f2 x1. Is it okay to everyone? In this first bracket we have f1, in the second bracket we have f2. Okay. Now what we will do, taking modulus on both the sides. Taking modulus on both sides. What happens if I take the modulus? The left hand side is f1 f2 operated on x2 minus f1 f2 operated on x1. Okay. Now can I separate the modulus on the right over this addition with less equal inequality? Okay. And I'll separate with this product also. Therefore, I'll write individual terms separately. Mod f2 x2 into mod f1 x2 minus f1 x1 added with mod f1 x1 as it is into mod f2 x2 minus f2 x1. Okay. And for how many terms you can write this? For any x1, x2 in the closed interval, correct? No. But already we have seen, if we have this kind of a set, what is the suprema by the previous lemma? For the function f1, in the ith subinterval we were discussing, not in the whole interval, right? No. x1, x2 we have taken from which interval? Ith subinterval, right? No. Okay. But can you tell me what is the suprema of this kind of set? f1 x2 modulus of f1 x2 minus f1 x1. Oscillation
dash minus small capital M I dash minus small m I dash.
Very good. And what for this bracket?
Double dash minus M I double dash.
Very good.
Small m I double dash.
Therefore, can I replace these values with this term with same less equal inequality, because this is an upper bound, no? Okay. This is the upper bound. Therefore, here I cannot write this is less equal by, okay. This term can I replace by K1? This term. Mod F2 X2 is less than or, sorry, K2, na? F2 is there. F2 X2 is less than or equals to K2, okay. And this I am going to replace by capital Mi dash minus small mi dash added with, this is K1 into capital Mi double dash minus small mi double dash. Okay. Now look at this term again for the function f1, f2. Okay. Again, for this kind of set, what will be the upper bound? Least upper bound, suprema. What is the suprema of this kind of set over x1, x2 belonging to the ith subinterval?
Mi minus.
Now here you can observe for if I vary the elements x1, x2 over the ith subinterval, this will be an upper bound and this will be a least upper bound, right now? Then what is the relation between the least upper bound and upper bound? Yes? Least upper bound and arbitrary upper bound. Relation is less equal, no?
Yes,
Yes.
Therefore, can I write by using the lemma? Here I am using the lemma. Here also by lemma you can do it. 3 times we were using the lemma. So by using the lemma, may I write capital Mi minus small mi is less than or equals to K2 into capital Mi dash minus small mi dash added with K1 into capital Mi double dash minus small mi double dash. Is that okay? Now what we have obtained this is the relation between the bounds of the function. How can I convert it to sums then? Relation between their sums. First step, multiply by delta xi and then adding over I. Correct now?
Yes, ma'am.
Multiply by delta xi and adding over I equals to 1 to n. Okay. Therefore, let me write the left hand side. Let me separate the sum as well. Okay. Capital Mi delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi delta xi less than or equals to K2 into. K2 is independent of I. Therefore, can be taken out. Correct? If you have any problem, any difficulty, you can stop me at any stage. And you can ask your difficulty. We are going very stepwise. Correct now? We have just multiplied by delta xi and we have made the addition over I equals to 1 to n. Now tell me the sums. What this first sum is?
U, E, F,
UP
F,
F2.
F1, F2. No, we have not written F anywhere. These are the bounds for F1 dot F2. Here, check out. Okay? Capital Mi and small mi are the bounds for F. One may write F equal to F1, F2, but we have not written in this proof. Therefore, can I write UP F1, F2? Minus LP F1, F2, right? Which is less than or equals to K2 into Mi dash is the upper sum with respect to which function?
F1.
F2.
Yes, it is F1. Okay. Then in the second bracket, this is double dashes. Therefore, this is upper sum with respect to?
2.
Yes? Yeah, yes.
2.
Okay, now we have reached up to this step and let me call it as statement number 2. This is the relation between the sums. Now, what is the aim to show? F1, F2 integrable means this term we wanted to show less than epsilon. Correct? But we have obtained this one. But already we know f1, f2 are integrable. So how can I adjust this to be less than epsilon? Knowing f1, f2 integrable, how can I adjust these terms so that the total sum together will give me less than epsilon?
Epsilon by 2.
Very good. Epsilon by 2. But you have to cancel this k2 and k1 also, na? You have to
By
cancel
2k.
this.
Epsilon by
Very
2k.
good.
Epsilon by
Very
2k
good.
and epsilon by
Not 2k, k2. 2k2 or 2k1, whatever it is. Since f1, f2 are integrable, okay, for epsilon greater than 0, there exists, or I can write for integrable for epsilon greater than 0, for any partition P, first form I will write. For partition P is norm. Here I can write there exists delta greater than 0 for the partition whose norm is norm P less than delta by first form of condition of integrability. Now you have to write the values u p f1 minus l p f1 is less by. Similarly, u p f2 minus l p f2 is less by. Yes. If I write simply epsilon by 2 here, then it will remain with k2 into epsilon by 2 and k1 into epsilon by 2. Therefore, just to cancel that k2, here I am writing epsilon by 2k2. And here it is epsilon by 2 k1. Okay? Right now?
Yes, ma'am.
For equation number, how much is the number? 2. Now equation 2 becomes. What this equation number 2 becomes then? U P f1 dot f2 minus LP f1 dot f2 is less than by k2 into epsilon by 2k2 added with k1 into epsilon by 2k1. Now here you can check this remains with epsilon by 2. This is also epsilon by 2. And finally we will get this as less than by epsilon. Therefore we have proved that the function f1 dot f2 is integrable. Okay? Function f1 dot f2 is integrable over.
Interval AB.
Yes, if any difficulty you have, you can ask me. No? Very good. Now can we prove the same with respect to the quotient? Okay. So without wasting much time, I will go for the next theorem directly for proving the quotient of integrable function is integrable. But while defining a quotient, we have to impose the conditions, no? What condition is essential to define the quotient of two functions?
denominator is not equal to 0.
Very good. Denominator should not be 0 because if denominator is 0, the whatever the quotient we have written will not exist right now. So we will take care of the condition and we will show that the quotient of two integrable function is integrable. Therefore, we will start with f1, f2 to be two bounded and integrable functions. On close the interval AB and there exists a number lambda greater than 0 such that mod of f2 of x is greater or equal by lambda for all x in the closed interval AB, then prove that. What to prove? f1 by f2 is bounded and integrable. Okay. Now look at this extra condition given to us. There exists a number lambda greater than 0 such that this holds. Whenever saying lambda greater than 0 and mod of f2 of x is greater or equal by lambda, lambda is greater than by 0. Therefore, can I ensure that mod of f2 of x is strictly greater than 0? If it is strictly greater than 0, whether there is any chance to get the value of a function equal to 0? असा काही चान्स येईल का एखादा एक्स असा मिळेल का आपल्याला की जिथे तुमची फंक्शन व्हॅल्यू 0 येते नाही येणार ना mod of f2 of x we were saying greater than 0 correct mod of f2 of x we were saying greater than 0 if I remove modulus still what it gives me either the value is positive or negative it will not take a value 0 and if it is not taking a value 0 the function f1 by f2 is defined correct now hello
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
okay therefore this condition what is the use of this condition only just to ensure that the quotient exists now again we will show the quotient is bounded and integrable in step 1 we will go for proving the function is bounded to prove that f1 by f2 is bounded okay now I will write since f1 f2 are given bounded since f1 f2 are bounded on closed interval AB there exists now I will write only one constant k greater than 0 such that what such that mod of f1 of x less than or equals to k mod of f2 of x less than or equals to k both the ways I am telling you okay if one may have a question why not k1 here why not k2 here you may write k1 k2 but what I will do whichever is the maximum I will select as k maximum among k1 k2 I will select as k okay k is you can write maximum among k1 k2 so for whichever is the maximum will satisfy both the inequalities no suppose mod of f1 of x is less than or equals to k1 and mod of f2 of x is less than or equals to k2 and suppose k1 is maximum if k1 is maximum can I write this k2 less than or equals to k1
Yes, ma'am.
okay that's why you can just make the uniformity in the bounds for the sake of proving themselves right but here I have given only one constant k bound okay and what for f2 of x for f2 of x may I write lambda less than or equals to mod of f2 of x and is less than or equals to k no need to write this okay now what for quotient consider quotient of f1 by f2 operated on x how it is evaluated again f1 of x divided by f2 of x okay but already we have written both the values okay both are both are less equal by k but f2 of x is in the denominator no therefore may I write mod of this numerator let me separate the modulus mod of f1 of x upon mod of f2 of x this numerator is less than or equals to k what for the denominator whether it will be k again yes students
Of f2 of x greater than greater equal lambda.
Yes, it is greater equal by lambda. Here I am giving the reasoning. Lambda less than or equals to mod of f2 of x that we have already in the statement itself. F2 of x is in the denominator, no? Therefore, let me take a reciprocal on both the sides. Therefore, if I take a reciprocal, inequality reverses. If 1 by lambda is greater equal by 1 upon mod of f2 of x. Therefore, you can write 1 upon mod of f2 of x is less than or equals to 1 upon lambda. Therefore, here can I write k upon lambda? K positive, lambda positive, k upon lambda will be still positive. Therefore, can I say f1 by f2 is bounded? Is it okay? Boundedness we have verified. Let us go for integrability again. To check integrability, one has to verify the condition of integrability. So to prove that f1 by f2 is integrable, again we have to establish the relation between the bounds. Again, let me write the partition. Let p equals to a equals to x naught, x1 to xn equal to b, be any partition. And I'll skip there some steps, okay? We'll go fast. What is the bounds? Consider capital Mi dash, small mi dash, be bounds of f1 in ith subinterval. What for f2?
Mi double dash.
What for f1? f1 by f2? Same technique we were using. Single dashes bounds of f1, double dashes are the bounds of f2, and without dashes are the bounds for the whatever the function we were going to prove. And again, to prove the relation between the bounds, we were going to make use of the lemma, very similar to the proof of previous one. Therefore, we have for all x1, x2 in the ith subinterval, xi minus 1 to xi. What I'm going to consider? I'm going to consider that lemma. Okay, using that lemma, I'm going to consider term f1 by f2 operated on x2 minus f1 by f2 operated on x1. Okay, how the term is operated? f1 x2 f2 x2 minus f1 x1. Again, to separate the terms of f1 and f2, we were going to make an adjustment. Okay, before that, let me do a cross multiplication here. What the cross multiplication gives us? f1 x2 f2 x2 minus f1 x1 minus f2, sorry, multiplication, and everything is divided by, sorry, some mess I have done. Here it is x1, no? Yeah. f1 x2 f2 x1 minus f1 x1 f2 x2, okay, divided by f2 x2 f2 x1. Okay, now clear. Now again we will do an adjustment of adding and separating a term, adding and subtracting a term, adding and subtracting the term. Which term? f1 x1 f2 x1. Okay, it is different from the previous theorem we have used. This is f1 x2 f2 x1 minus f1 x1 f2 x2. The term I am adding is f1 x1 f2 x1. Let me subtract the same. Okay. And the denominator is same. f2 x1. The denominator same. Okay. Now I am going to take some terms common. From the first and last again, what I can take common? Who entered just now?
X2.
I am about to finish the lecture. Someone has entered a class just now. Students should enter on time, okay? F2, x1 can be
X2.
taken. x2 or x1?
X1.
X1 can be taken common. And the term remaining is f1 x2 minus f1 x1. Clear na? F1 is separated. Now from the middle two, which can be taken common? f1 x1. Right now? Okay. Instead of taking plus f1 x1, I'll take minus f1 x1 common. Now tell me the terms remaining. Is it f2 x2 minus
X1.
x1? Okay. And here I have denominator f2 x2 and f2 x1. Okay. Again, separate modulus. Let me separate the modulus. This is with less equal. Correct? Okay. I'm going to separate. Putting the values of the functions also. Okay. May I write this as f2 x1 in one bracket modulus f1 x2 minus f1 x1. Okay. Subtracted with. Can I absorb the modulus negative in the modulus so that I can write plus f1 x1? Is it okay? Let me
Yes,
absorb
ma'am.
this
Yes,
negative.
ma'am.
And everything is divided by mod f2 x2 mod f2 x1. Now knowing the bounds of all the functions, let me put the bounds. What is the bound for f2 x mod f2 x1? Is it k? What are the bounds for this denominator? You can separate the denominators. Bound for this is 1 upon lambda, 1 upon lambda. Now f2 function we have. Therefore, may I write lambda squared? Both of them is, each one of them is less than by lambda lambda. 1 upon lambda, 1 upon lambda. And what is the bound for this term by using that previous lemma? Is it mi dash minus mi dash, correct? Plus, again bound for this function is k, denominator is lambda square, and bound for this will be by the lemma mi double dash minus small mi double dash. Correct, no?
No.
This is by using a lemma. Okay, if what we have proved, mod f1 by f2 operated on x2 minus f1 by f2 operated on x1. This is less equal by k upon lambda square capital mi dash minus small mi dash added with k upon lambda square capital mi double dash minus small mi double dash. Again by using that same lemma, what will be the least upper bound of this function? LUB, supreme. Is it capital Mi minus small mi? Right now? And this works as the upper bound by varying the values, different values of x1, x2 over the ith subinterval. For this kind of set, we have suprema mi minus mi, and this will work as an arbitrary upper bound. Therefore, what is the relation again between the bounds?
Less
Equal, ma'am.
Less
Same, less equal. Now we have established the relation between the bounds of the functions. What is my next step? Yes. What is my next step?
Multiply delta x1 xi.
Good. Multiplying by delta xi and adding over.
I.
Yes. I equals to 1 to n. Okay, let us finish it quickly. Summation I equals to 1 to n capital Mi delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi delta xi less than or equals to k upon lambda square is independent of I, is therefore taken out of the summation. Summation I equals to 1 to n capital Mi dash delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi dash delta xi added with k upon lambda square. Yes, summation I equals to 1 to n mi double dash delta xi summation I equals to 1 to n small mi double dash delta xi. Now tell me the sums quickly. This is left side is up which function? Huh?
F1.
Yes, it is f1 by f2 minus lp f1 by f2. This is less equal by k upon lambda square. Yes, the first bracket. Upper sum with respect to
F1.
f1. Lower sum with respect to f1 added with k upon lambda square. Upper sum with respect to
F2.
f2 minus lower sum with respect to f2. Now quickly you have to tell me by condition of integrability how can I adjust this combinedly to be less than epsilon? Yes. काय ऍडजस्ट करावं लागेल मला?
Lambda is
Epsilon by 2.
epsilon by
Epsilon by 2.
2k.
हा लेस देन बाय ओके थांबा मी लिहिते मग सांगा UPF1 मायनस LPF1 हा काय करावं लागेल लेस देन बाय इकडे बघून सांगा आता
Lambda square epsilon by 2k.
हा
Epsilon into lambda square divided by 2k.
very good epsilon lambda square upon 2k k upon lambda square we want to cancel therefore it should be lambda square upon k epsilon by t2 we have to adjust right therefore together this gives me epsilon lambda square upon 2k. Similarly for the second function also, na?
Yes, ma'am.
This is epsilon lambda square upon 2k. Go put the values in the above equation. What we were getting if I putting it in the above equation, up f1 by f2 minus lp f1 by f2 is strictly less by yes k upon lambda square into epsilon lambda square upon 2k added with k upon lambda square into epsilon upon lambda square upon 2k. Correct now? Here
Yes, ma'am.
k upon lambda square and this we have substituted. So combinedly we were first going to get this as epsilon by 2 after cancelling the terms plus epsilon by 2 which is combinedly less than epsilon. Hence what we were getting the function f1 by f2 is integrable. Yes, any difficulty in the proof you can ask.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, if not, let us stop for today. In today's lecture, we have completed two main theorems regarding integrability of product and integrability of quotient of two integrable functions. In the next lecture, we will go for modulus and some more theorems depending on the integrability. Okay, let me stop for today. Thank you for being with me for this lecture.
Hello.